Talk on the mic, right against it.
Right up against it.
You're good there. You'll just have to make sure you stay that close.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay. It's a little weird at first, but you'll get used to it.
Yeah. That's what you told me. That was weird.
That's awful. That's awful. We're joined by Jorge
You guys
Lima.
do you, man. You guys do you.
Joined by Jorge Lima with Common Ground.
Yes, sir.
And
he's got a crazy display out here.
Listen, the first thing I noticed was that is so unique.
It is.
And lie to me. That was your idea, wasn't it?
100%.
There you go.
Every last detail.
I dig it.
No.
You're up late at night scribbling it out. Oh, this will be perfect.
So before you tell us about that, tell us about what Common Ground is. Let's hear about that.
Sure. So Common Ground is actually the name of the project. Right?
Okay.
It's a pop-up exhibition that we are taking across the country. The idea being that we can change conversations and show the surprising truth about some of the most divisive issues across the country.
Yep.
Okay.
And that surprising truth is that Americans actually agree a lot more than they think. A lot more than the rhetoric would lead you to believe.
God. Someone that speaks
Our language.
common sense here.
He's talking our language.
Well, there's not a lot of us talking about it, but as we showed in the doors, there's a lot of us that think it. Right?
I think the problem is everybody assumes everybody on Twitter is everybody.
Correct.
And Twitter's maybe 10% of the population screaming the loudest, I think, all the time.
Good point.
So, yeah. And most of us, I'm on there screaming, but the rest of us want to, look at things like you do. They want to just have a conversation. And in some ways, they're actually embarrassed to say what they think because they're going to be slammed by someone on the other side. So I think it's very, very admirable to be doing something like this. We need conversation again. We need discussion again.
I mean, part of it is to give folks that kind of platform or breathing room to even have those conversations, because the way we've been divided so far nowadays is that even if you want to come out of that a little bit, you're going to be labeled a number of different things that
Very
actually
true.
aren't justified.
That's very true, yeah.
And that scares people from having conversations.
Yeah.
Yep.
And so through Common Ground, we literally set up doors, right? And they're by design something that people have to take action on. Like you stand on a carpet that says Common Ground, so you're literally standing on Common Ground. You take the action to open the door and kind of open yourself to this story, this fact or this theme. That will illustrate for this pop-up. We're talking about immigration. So each of the 9 doors has a story on immigration.
Okay.
That each one will end with a area of common ground amongst American public. And what we mean by common ground is literally we used trusted third-party sources to illustrate particular areas where 60, 70, 80% of Americans agree around things like America wants more entrepreneurs in this country. America wants to reform a system that hasn't changed since the 90s, back in the day when we didn't even know what the internet was. Right? Like America wants common sense solutions. So we have a door on Dreamers, and the majority of Americans say, why can't we solve the Dreamers and provide for more security at the border? Can we do both of those things?
Can we do both? Yeah.
Yes, we can, but unfortunately, we hear nowadays that that's not true. That we're being told as the American public that you only have 2 choices.
Yeah,
that's exactly what we're being told.
Well, actually,
you're right.
Yeah,
all we're being told is build the wall. I mean, it's really what we're being told.
Well, no, we're being told abolish ICE.
Yeah,
and so you either
that's a good point. Yeah.
That's what your only options are to say, well, I must either want to close off the country from new ideas and talents, or I must stop enforcing immigration laws overall. And the truth is, Americans don't want either of those absolutes.
And that's
exactly right.
Like you said, it makes people dig in even more, too. What were you going to say?
Most people, if you ask them about immigration, they have really strong knee-jerk first opinions, right? And then you start asking them about the history of America. Well, what about Ellis Island? And what are we really? Okay, unless your name is Two Feathers, and I know that's you're an immigrant.
Yeah.
You're an immigrant, which means you had the opportunity that you're now shutting the door on, to use your analogy over here, on someone else who all they want was the opportunity that we didn't have to have because our ancestors were given the opportunity just to come.
I was born here, Scott.
Yeah, you were. Yeah, you were.
Well, I mean, to your point, you talk to folks and they do have knee-jerk reactions to immigration. And by no means are we thinking that through this pop-up we are ignoring the differences. There are differences in the ways that we can approach immigration and the way we think about it. And we're okay with that. Let's have that discussion. But if every discussion starts with what we differ on, we are going to get more of the status quo. which has been, again, 30
That's when people
plus
dig in.
years. Yeah, they dig in, and so nothing gets done, right? Like right now you're seeing bills in Congress that have bipartisan support in the hundreds in the House. Year after year, it just never gets done because it's this idea that, no, that'll be a win for the other side. And because of that, even though I agree with it, we can't do that.
Allowing the other side to win is something that cannot happen, regardless. And I feel like now it's more important to make sure they don't win than it is to actually solve anything. We're seeing that all the time.
Yeah, we've been told the lie, Jorge, for forever in America that this next election is the most important election of our history.
Well, it is.
And whoever loses, the world comes to an end. Yeah. So, consequently, every issue that highlights that election becomes the most important issue ever in the history of America. And it's a total lie.
It's the same issue every time. Actually, immigration was a little different this time around, but it feels like the same 4 or 5 issues we're continually bringing up every 4 years and don't really try to solve. Yeah. And immigration is going to become one of those. I mean, I
would argue it already is.
Yeah, we're not. Yeah, that's what I'm saying.
I think you're right.
The two sides that are screaming the loudest really have no interest, I think, in solving the problem.
Correct. They're playing a very different game. Right. That the game they're playing with the issue of immigration is a political game, which, as you mentioned earlier, leaves America, who wants to see a solution, carrying the weight of inaction. Right. And that's the problem. So if you're playing that game, they're winning right now. Because all you see is the use of the issue back and forth for things like a political race.
And really, the issue is a humanitarian issue, in my opinion.
Oh, there's so many layers. Right? I mean, there's clearly economics tied to immigration. There's just a sense of who we are as Americans tied into that. And then, of course, the humanitarian aspect, right? We don't have to keep repeating it, but it is literally on the Statue of Liberty, right? That's a piece of America when it says that we welcome those people who are yearning to breathe free. And that is part of America.
And just the pragmatic aspect of being able to support immigrants, right? And on a whole scale, we've got to look at that as well. Like, how are we going to, it's different to say, I'm ready for all these folks to come in. How do we support those folks? I mean, that's a legitimate question that we 100%. Have to ask, right? And so it doesn't make you racist that you want to ask those kind of questions. That's another thing that I think is brought up a lot, not just abolish ICE. If for some reason you don't say, I'm completely for your position, half the country's labeled as racist because they are against immigrants. Yeah. Not just illegal immigrants. And even we're not just against illegal immigrants, but immigrants in general. We're not against those. Okay, we're not against immigration.
Yeah, well, and vice versa. You have on one side, you're absolutely right. So if you even question the idea of what kind of system, what the system would look like to determine who should and should not come in, because again, we can't just open and pretend we don't have borders. That's not based in reality. But on the other side, they feel it too, because if you start to question the idea of what it would look like, you're suddenly considered someone who doesn't care about America, right? If you like immigrants, then you must hate America. Which is
the most ridiculous thing on the planet.
100%. I mean,
it's ridiculous.
Americans believe that we can be both welcoming and at the same time have a legitimate system that protects our borders, and that is a reality. You can have both of those things.
Where's this guy been? Reality. Where have you been?
Behind the door.
He's been hiding behind one of those doors that we're not opening. Yeah.
So what has been the general reaction to the normal Joe that's at the show? He comes up to the booth. How are they reacting to what you're showing here?
I mean, honestly, we've been having great reactions. Okay. Right? So folks, on so many different levels, people who have come who are very passionate about the issue and say, wow, you've really reflected the issue well. And they just are so... have so much gratitude for the way that we're talking about it and the message we're saying. There's people who've disagreed, come in very passionate on the other side, but then say, you know what, but you're figuring out ways to allow for a conversation to happen. Then you have people who are, look, I've never really thought about the issue. It's never been one that's passionate, but door number 4 just spoke right to me. It made me think about my grandma, made me think about the stories that we had in my family, and I just remembered how important this is to me, right? So we're having so many types of conversations, which is, again, the whole point we wanted to do. Honestly, there's no way that in just 9 doors we're going to get someone to change their position. Yeah. What we're hoping is that we can change the conversation. Right. And that is what we're starting to see. People wanting to engage, people saying, maybe I don't have to be so antagonistic to somebody on the other side. Maybe there is something we can talk about.
So where does Common Ground go from Nashville? What's the next stop?
We will be in D.C. December 5th through the 7th.
Okay.
Then the doors will take a break for winter, and we start back up in 2020. We're going to be in California in January, and then hitting a number of spots on the way back to the East Coast throughout the year.
So this is a perpetual tour you're on.
That's the goal.
My God, that's exhausting.
And at what point do you switch to a different topic? I mean, is there a plan to do that, or are you going to stick with immigration for a while?
The goal is to grow and not just like stop one to start the other, but if we can run them parallel. So there could be common ground on things like criminal justice reform. There could be common ground on K through 12. There could be common ground on the economy and what that means.
Keep doing it until you change everybody's mind.
Or at least
enough to make sure we get everybody talking.
Yeah, there you go.
To me, that's the most important thing. Get people talking.
Yeah, I mean, look, the whole idea, right, the concept of what we're trying to do with this is that this could change the way people have conversations, and ultimately, hopefully, those conversations will lead to some solutions. That's what we want to see. That's what the American people say they want.
Yes.
And what we're realizing is right now there is no solution when everybody's just screaming at each other from their corners. So we're going to try this in hopes that perhaps we can start doing things where we have agreement. Of course, there's going to be areas where we disagree, but it'll be a different conversation at that point if we had already built some sort of sense of the ability to work together. Because right now, that's even in question.
Yeah, you know where you're headed with this is great, because we were just on Podcast Row. We were just up there, and we thought people were coming to see us, but apparently they were trying to get the front row seats for the next Bernie type event, which is going on now. You can see how packed that is. But so one of the things that they did is ask a question. It probably wasn't a very informed question to someone who is a Bernie voter. I would call it uninformed. He called it stupid. And I think that's a problem, right? Because you're coming to people who may not be informed in all the issues, but they have an opinion. We do that all the time. Scott and I's part of our show premise is to make uninformed opinions repeatedly. That's what we do, right? And then we bring on people that can actually tell us whether we're wrong or quote wrong or right. But one thing they typically don't do is say you're a complete idiot. But that happens a lot. And I think it's a major problem that you're combating is that people shut down. We know that happens psychologically, right? Yep. So if you're told you're stupid, you're going to immediately see that person as an enemy. You're going to immediately feel like either you are stupid and you don't want to talk to them again, or they're completely stupid for calling you that way. I think this is so important. These kind of conversations we have to have because we're just becoming so polarized. Nobody wants to talk to the other side anymore. It's completely happening everywhere.
So tell our listeners where they can find you on social media and how they can help.
So let's change the conversation. That's what we're trying to do. But the more that folks can interact with what we're doing, let us know how we can improve this experience. So if you're coming out in person, again, we're here at Nashville now for Politicon. We were in Miami, Florida earlier this month. We'll be in D.C. on the November 5th through the 7th at the Wharf. But you can also visit us at explorecommonground.com. That's the entire experience.
Virtual tours or whatever.
It's on there on the internet. People can interact with it. And you can also check out the organizations that are putting it together, Stand Together, the Libre Institute, and the Americans for Prosperity Foundation.
Love it. Awesome. Folks, go check out Common Ground. It's a neat thing. You're going to actually learn some stuff, hopefully, and we're going to have conversation, which is what we want.
Thanks for joining us.
Thank you for having us. It was a really good time.
Great. Yep, thanks. Bye.